On to our public forums. I'd like to welcome Richard Peebles, who's here on behalf of Peebles Group, to talk about draft development contributions policy. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Didn't know I was going to be first, but anyway, I'll try not to make it a big bleat, just a little one. Three things you want to...
Feel free, it's fine.
Three things I just want to comment on is just the, firstly is the legality of DCs and the CBD, the amount of increase, and then there's some technical stuff, but just on the legality of the CBD DC charges, DCs are enabled by obviously the Local Government Act. DCs are only for growth related to infrastructure costs. They must be fair, equitable and proportionate, and you cannot double dip, and this is important, or over recover. Now the CBD has not yet recovered to pre-earthquake levels. The commercial office space was 446,000 square metres pre-earthquake. We're about 290. So we also haven't recovered the retail and or residential. So obviously pre-quake you had infrastructure for the 446,000 square metres of office plus the retail and housing. You've got rates for the last 14 years to cover maintenance, etc. So we're not yet back to that pre-earthquake level. There is no... I know that I've asked staff and they said they've had a legal opinion on this, but I've actually had a legal advice contrary to what you've been given. I think you really need to think carefully about the legality, because I can assure you that given the increases of from 8,000 to 30,000 for the CBD, there will be a legal challenge to your DC policy. So you need to be very, very sure you have your bases covered. There is a policy saying the DCs expire after 10 years, and I know they in the suggested changes there was talk about extending that, and the reason given for not extending it is it would have a financial impact on the city. That is not one of the reasons you can determine whether you have DCs or not. It's about that fair, equitable and proportionate, and whether there's growth. The fact that it impacts the city's finances is irrelevant. And that was the prime reason for not extending the DCs. So I doubt its legality, so I would, being a bush lawyer that I am, I would suggest you really take that seriously. Secondly, about the amount of the increase, I think in this Christchurch CBD it's a 350% increase from 8,000 to 30,000, 400% in Linwood, from 7,800 to 29,000. The least affordable, the areas that can least afford a massive increase are the areas that are getting it. Papanui is 280%. The justification for the massive increases is lower growth. Now, how can you have massive increases for growth when there's lower growth? Anyone should simply say, maybe you should spend less on growth. You've got to consider the impact on the affordability on house prices, the viability of developments. It will stop development, and probably in the areas you want the development. So it will increase prices, it'll decrease attractive. Christchurch at the moment is really attractive. One of the major reasons is affordability. You can't just add 30,000 to a house price in Linwood and expect people to pay it or people to develop it. It will not happen. There's massive impacts on this massive increase. Unfortunately, and this is an indictment on my social life, I actually watched the YouTube clip of the initial draft when the staff put the DC increases to you guys. Only one councillor brought up the fact that about affordability. Everyone else was talking about how we're going to spend the money. Yanni was the only one that questioned about Linwood. I was very disappointed that no one sort of said what is going to be the impact on development and the affordability on prices, on rentals. That's what we need to be looking at. So my belief is you should spend less. That's very, very simple. If growth is lower, you need to spend less. You can't just divide it by fewer people and increase the DCs, which is what you've done. And now getting down into the weeds on the actual policy, there is where they've attributed a certain amount to growth versus to existing. Under wastewater collection, they've put 44% to growth. This is when we got low growth. That figure is just wrong. There is no way that is justifiable. You've got 16% for road network. So you've got little growth, but you're putting 16% of the road network costs to growth. Those figures are just fanciful. So community infrastructure is 33% to growth. You know, when you've got low growth, which is what, it's less than 1%, how can you put 33% of the cost to growth? It just doesn't make any sense. There is some other issues, I think, and this is another indictment that I actually read the whole thing and got that sort of time, but in part 4, assessment and charging of DCs, it talks about the assessment at granting of the consent. The Local Government Act says that you must assess at time of application of the consent so that the policy enforce at that point. So that, you know, that is wrong in your DC policy. There is other things which I don't understand. You've got the Little River Play and Recreation Development as a district-wide charge. I don't know why Hornby's paying for the Little River Park. You've also got the Hunter Terrace bicycle ramp and track renewal as a district-wide. You know, they are not district-wide charges. You know, someone seriously needs to look at what you've done and get down into the weeds, and it shouldn't be me. So just to summarise, the legality in the CBC, the DCs, you really need to check that you've got robust legal advice. You will be challenged, and the amount of the increase and the impact on the property market. That's it. That wasn't too bad a bleep, was it?
No, that's cool. Thank you, Richard. I've got 2 questions, Jake and Andre, please.
I was just going to say, would you be happy to table your legal advice? But if you're looking
Well,
at
it was
challenge,
verbal, so it was verbal legal advice. So
thank you.
someone trying to get my work.
Andre?
Thank you. One of the changes in this is effectively making even like a 2-bedroom apartment in the city centre paying the same amount towards stormwater infrastructure as, say, a 5-bedroom place out where stormwater basins and needing to be built
7-bedroom, I think,
out on out on swamp land. Are you able to comment a bit further on that? I would have thought it's nuts. Now it's time for overview and submissions.
I think you've decided that it's 1 bedroom. You get a discount. I mean, what it will do is it'll upset the market. You'll get more 1-bedroom apartments than 2 bedrooms. So you know, when you put these sort of arbitrary figures in, it will impact on what's built, because the difference in charges, I think it's 60% if you go 1 bedroom, goes to 100% if you go 2 bedroom, irrespective of the size of the unit.
Yeah, well, we've got a massive shortage of 1-bedrooms, but my question is more around the fairness of making smaller apartments in the city pay the same amount towards stormwater infrastructure as a big property that requires stormwater basins to be built right.
Well, they have to be associated. There has to be cause and effect for the.
Yeah.
So it depends on the amount of stormwater but you know, common sense would say that if you were building a 500 square metre house, you shouldn't be paying the same as a 100 square metre house. But I don't ever want to advocate for higher DCs, ever.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lower DCs.
Thank you very much, Richard, for coming in.
Thanks,
That's
Russ.
great. Okay, so now we have John Thacker, who is going to talk about the draft annual plan, please. Welcome, John.
Phil,